She had no choice. Her fate was decided even before she could fight back. Forced into a marriage she never wanted with a man she despised, Kate thought her life was ruined. But there was something worse than being trapped with Peter, realizing that, little by little, he was not exactly who she had imagined. Hatred brought them together, but something else began to grow between them, something neither of them was willing to admit. In a game where trust does not exist and secrets are worth more than promises, Kate must decide to fight against destiny or to accept that her greatest threat may also be her only salvation. But when the truth is revealed, will there still be time to turn back? Kate walked down the long, silent hallway of the house, feeling the weight of her father's sudden summons. He never called her to meetings without warning, and the fact that her mother had avoided his gaze during breakfast only made the situation even stranger. When she entered the office, she found them both sitting side by side. Her father was maintaining his usual rigid posture, and her mother was looking away, her hands in her lap. "Sit down," her father ordered in an unconditional tone. Kate hesitated, but pulled up a chair and sat down. "What's wrong with her?" Her father didn't waste any time. "You're getting married, Kate." The words hit Kate like a punch. For a moment she thought she had misunderstood. "What do you mean?" "The wedding is scheduled for next month." "You've got to be joking." Her father sighed, as if he had expected that reaction. "It's not a choice, Kate." Her heart began to beat faster. She looked at her mother, waiting for a reaction, an intervention, anything. But her mother remained silent. "I'm not going to marry a stranger," Kate said, and her voice came out louder than she expected. "He's not a stranger," her father replied coldly. Kate swallowed. "Who is he?" Her father looked her directly in the eyes. "Peter." She felt the floor disappear. She knew Peter, and she hated him. "This is ridiculous. He won't want that, and neither will I." "He's already accepted it," said her father. Kate shook her head. "This can't be happening." "It is happening," he corrected. Kate jumped up. "And if I refuse?" Her father folded his arms and held her gaze. "If you run away, your family will pay the consequences." Kate hesitated. "What do you mean?" "If this marriage doesn't take place, we'll lose everything." Anger grew in her chest. "And that's it? Am I just a bargaining chip?" Her father watched her for a moment before answering. "That's the way the world works, Kate. It always has." Her heart felt like it was being squeezed in two. She looked at her mother once more, hoping this time she would say something. But her mother remained silent, as if she had already accepted it. Kate took a deep breath, trying to contain the panic rising in her throat. "I hate you for this." Her father did not react. "The wedding is next month. Get ready." Kate left the room in a hurry, her chest heaving. She ran up the stairs and slammed the bedroom door. Anger mixed with despair made everything worse. Her fate was sealed without her having any say in the matter. Her cell phone vibrated on the desk. A message from an unknown number. "Don't think I'm happy. But if we're going to do this, let's do it my way." Kate's blood boiled. It was Peter. She typed quickly, "If it were my way, I would never marry you." The response came in a matter of seconds. "Then we have something in common." Kate threw her phone on the bed and felt an overwhelming frustration wash over her. Not only was she trapped in a forced marriage, but with a man she despised. The only certainty she had was that it would not end well. Kate tried to sleep that night, but every time she closed her eyes, the same crushing truth came back to her. She was trapped in a marriage she didn't want, and what was worse, with Peter, a man who always showed her how much he despised her. What had she done to deserve this? She tossed and turned in bed, restless as anger coursed through her veins. By the time the sun came up, she had made up her mind. She had to find Peter and settle the matter once and for all. In the afternoon, a driver took her to an expensive restaurant. Kate didn't need to ask who she was expecting. When she entered, she found Peter sitting at the table in the back, absently fiddling with his wristwatch, as if being there was a waste of time. He looked up at her, his gaze full of boredom. "You took your time." Kate folded her arms. "I wasn't in a hurry." He smiled and pointed to the chair in front of him. Sit down. She hesitated but obeyed. I'll get straight to the point, Kate said bluntly. This makes no sense, not for you or for me. Peter rested his elbows on the table and interlaced his fingers. I agree, but here we are. Kate felt her frustration growing. You can call it off. Call it off? She frowned. Yes. You can say you don't accept, that you don't want to. Peter cocked his head, analyzing her. If I had that option, do you think I'd be here? She blinked. I'm as stuck as you are, Kate. She swallowed. That took her by surprise. But you always do what you want. You're the kind of man who would never accept something like this. She let out a weak laugh. And you think you're wrong? Kate felt a chill. If you don't want this, why don't you do something to stop it? Peter looked away for a moment. Because sometimes certain battles are already lost before they even begin. She narrowed her eyes. You're hiding something. He shrugged. Maybe I am, but that doesn't change anything. The wedding will go ahead. Kate clenched her fists. Don't you care? Peter smiled sideways. I never don't care. Anger grew inside her. I hate you. Good to know. I guess we're officially engaged? Kate wanted to scream. He was joking about it all while her life was falling apart. She got up suddenly. It's not over. I know, Peter replied, not looking away. Kate left the restaurant with a firm step, but inside she felt on the verge of collapse. This marriage was not just a mistake, it was a sentence. The day of the wedding arrived before Kate could find a way to escape. The white dress seemed a cruel irony, a mask of purity for something that she knew was rotten inside. The fabric was flawless, made to measure for her, but all she felt was a suffocating tightness in her throat. Her mother's hands were fixing the last details of the dress, but Kate couldn't look at her. All those days she had hoped that her mother would do something, anything, to prevent her from being handed over like an object. But no, she was just preparing her for the inevitable. You look beautiful, said her mother, in a voice that Kate couldn't decipher. Kate closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears. I don't want this. Mum hesitated before answering. Some things are beyond our control. Kate turned to look at her. And you accept it so easily? Mum lowered her eyes. I want you to be strong. Kate let out a bitter laugh. Be strong? You're selling me off and you want me to be strong? Mum sighed, but before she could say anything, there was a knock at the door. It's time, said the master of ceremonies. Panic took hold of Kate, but before she could say anything, she felt her mother's hands on hers. Everything will be all right, she whispered. But Kate knew it wouldn't be. They led her down the aisle like a prisoner at a luxury fashion show. People stared at her with expressionless faces, some with approving smiles, others simply analyzing her as if she were a carefully rehearsed spectacle. And then her eyes met Peter's. He was impeccable in his dark suit, as unflappable as ever. His face was a mask of utter boredom, as if he were keeping an appointment rather than sealing a destiny. Kate stopped beside him, her hands sweating inside her lace gloves. When the celebrant began to speak, she could barely hear the words. Her heart was pounding. Do you take Peter to be your lawfully wedded husband? The question sounded like a shot. Kate felt all eyes on her, waiting for her answer. All she wanted to say was no, but she knew the consequences. So she closed her eyes and swallowed. I do, she said, almost without voice. Peter didn't even hesitate when it was his turn. I do. The ring slipped onto her finger. The kiss was brief, mechanical. What should have been a moment of celebration was nothing more than a contract signed before witnesses. Night fell, and Kate found herself trapped in the luxurious hotel suite, now officially married to the man she hated. Peter took off his tie and threw it onto an armchair, his expression completely indifferent. Let's get one thing straight, he said, breaking the silence. I don't expect anything from you, and you shouldn't expect anything from me. Kate folded her arms. Believe me, that's a relief, he smiled. Good. The silence lasted a few seconds before he spoke again. Do you want the bed or the sofa? Kate raised an eyebrow. You sleep on the sofa? Peter laughed softly. I like your fighting spirit. Kate picked up one of the pillows and threw it at him. Enjoy it. He lay on the bed, with his back to her. All he could think was that his worst nightmare had only just begun. The first days of their marriage had been a torment. Kate and Peter shared the same house, but it was as if they lived in completely different worlds. He spent most of his time away, dealing with business matters or simply ignoring her existence. When they were in the same room, their conversations were brief, cold, and full of silent contempt. One morning, Kate went down to the cafeteria and found Peter sitting at a table, flipping through some documents while sipping his coffee. He didn't even look up when she entered the kitchen. Any problem sharing a table? Kate asked, picking up a cup. Peter finally looked at her with his characteristic ironic smile. Not at all, as long as you know how to keep quiet. Kate laughed without humor and sat down across from him. You know, I'm surprised at your talent for making everything unbearable. Was that a compliment? It was a warning, she replied, taking a sip of her coffee. Peter leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. If you're going to hate me, at least make it interesting. You're becoming predictable. Kate squeezed the handle of her cup. Don't worry, I'm still perfecting my hatred of you. Peter smiled. I know, I can tell. She stared at him for a few seconds before looking away. He seemed amused by the whole thing, and that only irritated her even more. That afternoon, Kate was trying to entertain herself when a maid entered her office. Does Madam want anything special for dinner? Kate blinked in surprise. Dinner? Yes. Mr. Peter mentioned that you had guests tonight. Kate's blood boiled. He what? She left the office and went straight to his study. Without knocking, she opened the door and found him on the phone. He looked up and raised an eyebrow, as if he already knew exactly what was coming. I have to go, he said into the phone before putting the receiver down on the table. Kate folded her arms. Are you kidding me? Be more specific. I joke about lots of things. Have you booked a dinner without telling me? Peter rested his elbows on the table. Wow, that almost sounds like concern. Kate let out an ironic laugh. I just don't like surprises. Well, get used to it. She watched him for a moment. Who's coming? Peter smiled. Important people. Good. More people to witness the disaster that is this wedding. Believe me, nobody cares. Kate left the room without saying another word. If Peter wanted to turn their life into a game of teasing, she would play along. The dinner was a sophisticated event, full of influential faces that Kate barely knew. Peter was the perfect host, smiling and chatting with everyone while Kate just watched. He seemed to love the role of impeccable husband when there were witnesses. How's married life? Asked a woman with a curious smile. Kate gripped her fork tightly. Wonderful. A real dream. Peter looked at her and laughed softly. My wife has a special talent for sarcasm. And my husband has a special talent for manipulating people, Kate replied, glaring at him. Peter simply raised his wine glass. What a beautiful combination we make. Dinner passed without too many conflicts, but Kate realized something that night. Peter was not only cold and calculating, he was dangerous in social situations, and somehow she had to find a way to beat him. After dinner, Kate avoided Peter as much as possible. Not that he seemed to mind. He continued with his routine of work, meetings, and events, while she tried to make sense of her new reality. But no matter how hard she tried, living together was inevitable. One afternoon, as she was going downstairs to leave, she found Peter in the living room, adjusting his jacket buttons. He looked at her and smiled sideways. Have you finally decided to do something other than stay locked in your room? Kate folded her arms. Does it bother you? Not really, but I thought you were going to abandon this Cold War. She narrowed her eyes. This isn't a war. Not yet, he replied, picking up the car keys. But if you want to turn it into one, I can make it fun. Kate rolled her eyes and walked to the door, ignoring him. But before she could leave, he spoke again. Oh, just so you know, we have an event tonight. Kate stopped and turned slowly. What event? A company event. And you're telling me now? He shrugged. I didn't think you'd mind. Kate felt her blood boil. Do you think you can drag me wherever you want? Peter cocked his head and smiled. I think that's exactly what I'm doing. She clenched her fists. You'll regret making me go. We'll see. Kate entered the assembly hall that night with a flawless smile, but inside she was seething. If Peter wanted a game, she would play it. As soon as they entered, all eyes were on them, the perfect couple, the arranged marriage that everyone was whispering about. Peter took her hand, maintaining the charade. Pretend you love me, he whispered with a fake smile. Kate squeezed his hand even tighter. Pretend you can stand me. She laughed softly. I do it all the time. Kate turned to him, smiling. Well, try a little harder. She squeezed his hand and moved closer, bringing her lips to his ear. Tonight I'm going to make you hate me. Peter looked at her for a moment, and Kate noticed something strange in the way he was looking at her. A defiant gleam, perhaps. But he just smiled. I can't wait. He walked away and headed towards a group of guests, leaving him behind. During the event, Kate mingled with people. She talked to investors, laughed at jokes, and tried hard to show that she could play as well as Peter. When he approached, smiling at a group of businessmen, she intervened. I hope my husband isn't too arrogant. The group laughed, but Peter just watched with interest. No more than usual, he replied. Kate picked up a glass and raised it. Then let's drink to that. Peter brought his glass closer to hers without looking away. To us. There was something in the air, something different. As if, for a brief moment, they were both enjoying the game they were playing. But Kate knew she couldn't let her guard down. The following days were different. Something had changed. Kate could feel it, but she didn't want to admit it. Peter also seemed to realize it, but, as always, he acted with his usual arrogance. She still hated him, or at least she tried to convince herself of that. But something inside her was different, and it irritated her. One afternoon, while reading a book in the home library, she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up and found Peter leaning against the doorframe, watching her. What's wrong? He asked, trying to maintain a carefree tone. You're strangely quiet. Kate calmly closed the book. If you want me to yell at you, give me a reason. He smiled sideways. I like your energy, but today I'm not in the mood for fights. She raised an eyebrow. That's a new one. Peter approached a bookshelf and ran his fingers through the books, looking distracted. Have you never wondered why I agreed to this marriage? Kate folded her arms. Of course I have asked myself. But I know that the answer is not love, so I haven't bothered to ask. He let out a deep laugh, always cutting, always direct. Peter picked up a book and opened it, leafing through it without any real interest. I had a choice, Kate. Just like you. She narrowed her eyes. If I had a choice, I wouldn't have accepted it. He closed the book and looked directly at her. You know nothing. Kate felt a chill. There was something in his gaze, something she had never seen before. Then tell me. Peter was silent for a moment, and then shrugged. Maybe someday. Kate frowned as he left the library. Something was wrong. Peter never talked about himself, but just then he let slip that there was more to this story than she thought. That night, Kate was woken by the sound of thunder. The room was dark, lit only by the glare of the storm. She tossed and turned, trying to ignore the strange feeling that still overwhelmed her from her conversation with Peter. Then she heard a noise in the hallway. She sat up in bed, her heart racing. She got up slowly and opened the door. The corridor was dark, but in the distance she saw a light on in the office. She went over and found Peter sitting at his desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't look at her when she came in. What are you doing up? He asked. I can't sleep. She folded her arms. Is there anything you want to share? He smiled slightly, but it was a humorless smile. I'm not the sharing type. Kate hesitated. Is it because of the wedding? Finally he looked at her, and his gaze was different, less cold. You have no idea what this wedding means, Kate. She took a deep breath. Then tell me. He turned the glass in his hand, thoughtful. Not tonight. She wanted to insist, but something told her that he was not willing to talk. But she knew one thing. There was a secret in Peter's past that could change everything. Kate couldn't get Peter's words out of her head. You have no idea what this marriage means. The phrase resonated like a riddle that she needed to unravel. All her life, she had believed that Peter was nothing more than a cold, arrogant and controlled man. But now she felt that there was something more, something that he was hiding. Over the next few days, she began to observe him more closely. He still maintained that unwavering posture, but sometimes she noticed that his gaze was distant, lost in thought, as if he was struggling with something he couldn't say. One morning, while having breakfast in the large dining room, Kate broke the silence. You never talk about your past. Peter slowly raised his eyes, holding his coffee cup. I don't see the point. She folded her arms. Maybe because it explains why you are the way you are. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? Cold. Distant. Peter let out a weak laugh. Do you think I'm like this because I want to be? Kate cocked her head to one side. I think you're like this because you're afraid of being different. She was silent for a moment and then looked away. You don't know anything about me. Kate leaned over the table. So tell me. Peter twirled the spoon in his coffee, lost in thought. Do you really want to know? Yes, I want to know. He stared at her, his eyes analyzing every feature of her face. My father was a powerful man, and cruel. Kate felt a chill. What do you mean, cruel? Peter pressed his lips together before continuing. He was never one to show affection. I grew up being taught that emotions are weaknesses, that the only way to survive is to be stronger than everyone around you. Kate didn't reply immediately. And you believe that? Peter laughed, but without humor. Believing it kept me alive. She felt a tightness in her chest. For the first time, Peter seemed human. So this wedding, it ended for her, was an imposition. Kate watched him closely. And why did you accept it? Peter looked at her, holding her gaze. Because I never had a choice. She opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. For the first time she realized that after all, perhaps they were not so different. That same afternoon, Kate found Peter in the garden of the house, leaning on the balcony, looking at the sky. She approached him hesitantly. Don't you ever rest? He smiled in the corner without taking his eyes off the stars. I was never taught to rest. Kate stood next to him, folding her arms. You act as if you were always waiting for something bad to happen. He turned to face her. And isn't that how the world works? She shook her head. It doesn't have to be that way. Peter watched her for a moment. What do you want from me, Kate? She hesitated. The truth. He sighed. I've already given you part of it. Then give me the rest. Peter was silent for a moment and then looked away. I don't know if I can. Kate felt her heart squeeze. She had never imagined that she would one day feel empathy for him. But there, that night, she realized that hating him was becoming increasingly difficult. Kate was awake all night, her thoughts spinning around in her head. She had never imagined that Peter could hide so much about himself. She had always seen him as calculating, without feelings, but now she knew that there was something more behind his cold gaze, something that he did not want, or perhaps could not, share completely. The next morning she met Peter again in the garden. He was holding a cup of coffee, gazing pensively at the horizon. She approached him, and without saying anything, sat down next to him. Don't you get tired of chasing me? He joked, without looking away. I'm just trying to understand the man I was forced to marry. Peter let out a slight sigh. And what have you found out? Kate folded her arms. That you're not exactly who I thought you were. She laughed slightly. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? She hesitated before answering. I don't know yet. Peter turned to her, and his eyes analyzed every detail of her expression. If you could choose now, would you still run away? Kate blinked. The question had taken her by surprise. She was supposed to answer yes, that she still hated the situation, that it was all still a mistake, but to her own confusion, she wasn't sure. I'm not sure. Peter seemed surprised by her answer. At least it was honest. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain control of the situation. What about you? If you could go back, would you refuse this marriage? He was silent for a moment before answering. I don't know. Kate felt something inside her change. They had started this relationship as enemies, trapped in a game they hadn't chosen to play. But now everything seemed different. Peter took another step closer to her, and Kate was unfazed. For the first time, there was no hatred between them. Only curiosity, only a doubt they both shared. I think we're becoming a problem for each other, Peter murmured. Kate smiled slightly. That had been clear from the start. She held his gaze for a long moment before doing something unexpected. She kissed him. It was brief but intense, an electric shock that ran through Kate's body in an unexpected way. When they separated, her lips still tingled. It was a mistake, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Peter smiled. Maybe it was, but it didn't feel like a mistake. Kate was speechless. She had never thought this would happen. But now, looking at him, she realized that perhaps her struggle against Peter was no longer about staying away from him, but about accepting that in some way he was already part of her life.